Powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios, it's Football at 4.
And Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. It's brought to you by PropSwap, America's sports betting marketplace. Sell your sports bets and take your profit. Find out how. Go to PropSwap.com. Download the PropSwap app today. Phillies winning. There's a possibility that they will sweep this series if they can. Now, if this was last year, you would wonder if the bullpen would completely blow the game. But that hasn't reared its ugly head quite yet this year anyway. It's still early. Phillies are beating the Rockies, and I'll try to get an updated score on that. It was 7-1 the last we heard that. Of course, the Sixers tonight. You can hear that game on our sister station, Rock 104.1. That game will be on Rock 104.1 tonight, and that is a 7 o'clock tip. Game number 6, and it's a big topic of conversation here at Slack Tide Brewery in Cape May Courthouse, whether or not the Sixers will win this game tonight. We'll dive into that a little bit later on with Keith Smith. But right now, draft day is here. It's like Christmas Day for Andrew DiCecco. As, boy, oh boy, it's been a while. We've been talking about it all, and it's about to unfold. Andrew, what is happening?
Hey, Mike, how's it going? Yeah, Christmas morning sort of sounds like a good comparison.
Well, it's here finally, and we hear all the different things. I mean, I'll start off like from the back end to the front. At the Eagles are at 15 and 18. In your mind, is that where they will pick tonight?
I don't think so. I think there's going to be a player that's going to slide down a little bit further than anticipated, and they're going to find themselves within striking distance. And I think they're going to use some ammo to move up, whether it be for a Kayvon Thibodeau or Sauce Gardner, perhaps. Those are two players I could see them being aggressive and trading up for.
All right, so that was. I'm glad that we started from the back to the front because yes, which players do you see possibly falling, and then them also being ones that Howie Roseman says they are falling? Now I want to make my call.
I think it would be Kayvon Thibodeau and also Sauce Gardner. A player that we haven't mentioned much, Derek Stingley, is someone that I think is going to rise. And it sounds funny because when we started this pre-draft process, he was always viewed as a blue-chip prospect. But suddenly, I think he's sort of fell out of favor, became an afterthought. But from the media perspective, I think in NFL circles, no one's forgotten the level that he played at as a freshman and at the level and at the competition and the level that he played. So I think that he's going to be somebody that could potentially push Sauce Gardner down.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk about number 3. I mean, I got to ask you, if you're Houston, maybe we're on different wavelengths here, but if you're Houston, are you taking a corner in that spot at number 3?
They have so many areas of need, Mike, but I have to think that if we're going best player available, that would probably be corner or their biggest area of need in which you're going to invest in, and that's either a pass rusher or a corner. So I'm inclined to think that it would either be Thibodeau or it would probably be like Sauce Gardner or Derek Stingley.
Right, you mentioned Thibodeau as a possible, and we've been hearing his name a little bit. He's all over the map. Why is it in your mind that there was a while back, if you looked at a mock draft, and I know mock drafts are what they are, but you saw him at number 1 in many of those mock drafts. Why has he gone from number 1? I saw him as deep as number 12, 13 in some mock drafts this morning.
Yeah, that 12 or 13 would be really unforeseen. I think that he's a player that is kind of polarizing in the sense that he doesn't necessarily have overly explosive traits. He's sort of a tweener player. There's been questions about his motor, which if you watch him play, I don't think it runs hot and cold. I think that he always keeps that motor running, and he's an aggressive downhill player. But I think you don't see the overly twitchy qualities that you look for in these premier pass rushers. And that sort of goes with the theme of this entire draft. You see a lot of good players. There's not a lot of bona fide great players that have you can stamp an all-pro label on them for their career. I think you're going to find a lot of serviceable, high-end players, Pro Bowl players, but I don't know that you can look at them all and definitively say, yeah, that guy's going to be a perennial All-Pro. So I think all those things sort of, made up the stew as to why he's sort of become an afterthought this late in the process.
Okay, so he would be a guy you would think that Howie would make a call for if he starts to fall. What about Kyle Hamilton? Now, I've been shocked to see. Daniel Jeremiah, a guy that we respect a lot. He had him going to the Eagles at 15, let alone falling to 12, where I saw him in a couple of mock drafts today. Is he slipping, and is he a guy? Because this is the interesting part to me, Andrew, is if you're going off best player available, would Howie and the Eagles put a safety that high on their best player available and say, hey, if he's hit 15, we're going to take him?
Well, given their track record, it wouldn't seem likely. However, if they are purely going off the best player available, Mike, in that case, it would be Kyle Hamilton. And he's not purely just a safety. He can be deployed in a multitude of ways and give Jonathan Gannon sort of a unicorn to put around formations and design coverages around him, and his ability to sort of take away these explosive tight ends and match up with running backs and track them out of the backfield. There's just so many different things that he can do. And I think that if you're getting Kyle Hamilton, you're knowing that, it's not just purely a safety. There's a lot we can do with him. So that would be the best player available if he's on the board at 15.
Okay, I know over at InsideTheBirds.com, Andrew has his mock draft up for the Eagles 3.0. This is it. You've got Jordan Davis going to Philadelphia, and of course, a lot of people mentioned that that's a guy that that they're very interested in. Because of the fact that he's that 6'6", 340. He can kind of take up space in the middle, and you think he'll be there at 15? Is that a guy that you would be surprised if he's there, or that you think that nope, it'll be pretty clean that he'll get there?
Yeah, that's an interesting question in itself, because he's someone that's also been somewhat of a polarizing prospect throughout the pre-draft cycle, because he has the size and his athleticism and his numbers at the combine. He blew the doors off the combine. So all of a sudden, you automatically assume he's going to be a top 10 guy. Well, then you have to look even deeper and delve beneath the surface and see, okay, he was a sort of a part-time player at Georgia. He doesn't offer a ton of pass rush upside. And how does his skill set and what he's really good at translate to the current NFL landscape? My opinion on all that is he's a disruptive player, and you plug him into your defense and he automatically makes it better. You ask any quarterback out there what affects them the most, and it's interior pressure up the middle. Yeah, he might not get home, and he's not going to be a double-digit sack guy, but just collapsing the pocket, moving them off their spot, making quarterbacks account for that, hitting the quarterback, getting their hands up, his big mitts up there. I think that's a disruptive player, and it opens things up for everyone on defense to make plays, and he occupies double teams as well. So he's a player that you could get and know that you're going to plug him in, and he's going to be a disruptive force from day one.
Yeah, I guess you look at John Gannon, what he wants to try to do. That's not Fletcher Cox. That's not Hargrave. That's not Milton Williams. They don't really have this type of player on their current roster, which is why this player would make a lot of sense, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you've seen mock drafts for what they're worth. Or top. Sometimes you see them in the top 10. And at other times you see him that's going 17, 18, or 19. So he's a player that is going to be really interesting to see where he falls or where he ends up going tonight, because it all depends on the scheme fit and the value. And you might find some teams that just don't value that his play style, and they have questions about his lack of snaps. They're going to say, is he that poor of a pass rusher, or was it a conditioning concern? There's a number of reasons why that could have been. And you're going to find some teams that weigh that heavily in their consideration, and others that don't.
Andrew DiCecco, football at 4, and the draft tonight, of course, you can listen to it all right here on 97.3 ESPN. So you like Jordan Davis there at number 15. And then at 18, you're going Chris Olave, and there's been so much talk about Jameson Williams. So do you just not think Williams will get there? Do you like Olave better? Kind of give us your thoughts behind why Olave at number 18, because I haven't seen a whole heck of a lot of that.
Yeah, and I think that you're going to see Garrett Wilson go before his teammate Chris Olave, and I do think that Jameson Williams has the potential to go in the top 10. I think in our Inside the Birds mock draft that me, Adam, and Jeff did on Sunday for Monday was I had him going to the Falcons, I believe, at 8. So I think that he's the best receiver in this draft class. He instantly makes any offense better. Now the question becomes, will he be available for training camp? So obviously the medical is going to weigh heavily in the team's decision here. But if everything checks out, I think you take him. If you're and the team in the top 10 needs a receiver, you take him without any sort of hesitation or reservations because he's that type of player. But you still have Drake London that's going to be in the mix. You find a team that might really like his size and what he can bring from a contested catch ability and red zone option. And then you have Chris Olave. Chris Olave, what do you do with Chris Olave? Well, he's not going to enamor a team with his size. He's a very technically savvy route runner, probably from my vantage point, the best in the draft. But he's not. I mean, Garrett Wilson is more of a true vertical threat. Olave's not extremely physical. He can work all three levels of the field, but there's a lot of things that he does well. Nothing that I would say he does great. So I think that there is a chance, Mike, that he is around there at 18.
Andrew, what do you make or think of a lot of McDuffie at 18? I've seen a bunch of people putting McDuffie in that 18 spot. So do you like that? Do you like him better than Booth and some of the other options that might be there?
I wouldn't like the fit in Philadelphia. I think he'd be a great fit for a team like the Pittsburgh Steelers that like that a corner of his body type that are just, short area quickness, a little bit, more shorter but physical, scrappy guys. Remember they had, guys like Ike Taylor and the guys that they have right now are pretty small as well. But if you look at their history, I think he sort of fits that tough, scrappy mentality. But for the Eagles, they need a big-bodied perimeter corner that can pair well opposite Darius Slay and match up with some of these bigger receivers out there. The Eagles have a number of small corners, and I think they need to get bigger. Andrew Booth is a far superior player, in my opinion. I think if you're torn between the two, Andrew Booth would be a no-brainer for me if he's there at 18.
All right, we're talking with Andrew DiCecco, football at 4. There's a lot happening in this draft. Now, I like it in round 2. I know a lot of people don't think about that, and, of course, that's not till tomorrow. But you go safety there with Brisker, and then in the 3rd round, which is they got 2 picks, you go linebacker finally, and I know you like McCollum. There's a guy you talked to. But my question is they got the 2 third-round picks. If they're moving up, which is a possibility, they would need to use one of those third-round picks to do so, right?
Yeah, I would assume it would probably be the 101 that they got from the Saints.
Right. So if that's the case, because there's been a lot of talk that they want to move up, but they don't want to. They still want to pick twice tonight. They don't want to trade a first-round pick. So how far up can you go if you're really only willing to part with a third-round pick?
That's interesting. I mean, we're already talking about maybe 2-3 picks max that you're going to be able to jump with if you're giving up giving up a third for that.
Right.
So it would have to be a player that's somewhat within reach that they want to make a last minute effort to get and secure. But I don't think that's going to get you much. But that said, I don't know if they're going to be willing to part with anything for this year. That maybe that 51 pick is crucial. To build depth, and there's going to be a ton of starting caliber players. We mentioned Brisker as a player right there that's going to be probably in all likelihood available at that point, and a number of others. So yeah. I think that you're only going to be able to get a few picks, leap up a few picks with that.
Yeah, yep. So I'm glad you said that. So if you're only willing to give up a third, you're probably only going up a couple, which means you're looking, if somebody falls, it's got to be to that 12-ish range, right? So if someone happens to be around 12, you might have enough ammo for that, but you're not willing to use enough ammo to get much further up than 12, it would seem like. So if people out there are thinking trade up, you're saying it would be more in the 12 range than way up into like the 6 range.
Yeah, that I don't see. It's just maybe if a player like Sauce Gardner is somehow dropping a little bit further than anyone anticipated, I could see. But if we're talking like a Thibodeau or something like that, and we're talking about trying to move up into the 6 or 7 or something, I don't see them doing it. You could stand pat and get perhaps a Jermaine Johnson, Karlaftis. There's going to be other pass rushers there that you can get without having to give up significant draft capital in that regard. So I think it would have to be for a player like a Sauce Gardner, who's a bona fide top cornerback prospect that you can plug right in, and he's going to play at a high level. But anyone else, I don't envision that.
All right, so for as long as you've been covering the draft and prospects and all this stuff, Andrew, you do a great job. It's been, man, it feels like, we've been talking about the draft for a while, but you and I can go back and forth, I feel like, on this a lot. Have you ever covered a draft, though, now you might be sure, but where you weren't sure what the top number one, but like the top three were even going to look like?
No, I haven't. And that's what makes this draft so intriguing and interesting from my perspective, is that you don't have any idea. Like, I happen to think that Evan Neal, the offensive tackle from Alabama, could quite possibly be the number one pick because they got to protect Trevor Lawrence. And there's so many other question marks about Aiden Hutchinson, and, you can go right down the list. So I think you look at Doug Peterson, and if he's learned anything, he's learned to protect his quarterback, and he's been around Jeff Stoutland and seen what the value of building your offensive line and developing offensive linemen looks like for long-term success. So, I mean, it could very well be for him.
So I asked this question on Twitter earlier. I'll ask you. If I was to give you $100, Andrew DiCecco, what's the one bet you are sure of tonight in the draft that you would put that $100 on? You are sure this is going to happen.
Let's see. Probably five receivers go in the first round.
5 receivers go. Now, that's an outside-the-box thought, because I think most people would try to put a player on a certain team. You went with 5 receivers will go in the first round. I like that answer. I'll see if I can get that on one of those little sites. You know what I'm saying? Maybe I can get a couple bucks on that one. The over-under for SEC players in the first round is 10.5. You like that?
I do like that. Yeah, that's an interesting one.
Over 10.5, right?
I would probably, I would be inclined to take the over on that.
32 players. Are you looking for that right now? You trying to find that bet right now?
I will as soon as I get off this call.
No, there's a guy. We're out on location, and he's got his food. He said he's got his phone out. He's trying to find that 10.5 on SEC players. Bang, I'm in. All right. So Andrew, yesterday you did your mock draft. You got Jordan Davis, Chris Olave. 24 hours you slept on it. Any reason you're changing your mind today?
Well, I think it's going to be, you have to go receiver with one of these picks, Mike. And I think that the way that I envisioned the board falling is that you're going to have your pick probably between like a guy like Drake London or Chris Olave. And I think that you look at Chris Olave's route running and his ability to, he can be a vertical threat, which you're not going to get from Drake London. And I think that you're going to see some of his skill sets that might be a little bit more translatable early on. And the Eagles need a guy who can step right in and play right away because they're just not good enough at wide receiver right now. That I sort of think that they've put themselves in a bind where they have to take one in the first round. And I kind of do think that Olave could be there at that time. So I think that he's a classic case of a player who probably shouldn't be available at 18, but I think could be and would be in that scenario. And that's why I think that he would be the pick.
All right. I know you're a big, you like a nice cold beer. And our guy Phil, who's here, he's a listener. He tweets a lot at us. And he said, come here and do the live spot. We were all drinking beers here at Slack Tide Brewery in Cape May Courthouse. I mean, there's great beer here, man. I should have told you to come out live. You would have enjoyed it. Sorry, my bad.
All good.
All right, Phil will drink a cold beer for you. Andrew DiCecco will be back, of course, next week to give us his thoughts on how this whole draft unfolded, what happened, and tomorrow, Football at 4, Adam Kaplan will recap the first round and get us ready for round number 2 and round number 3. Andrew, enjoy the draft, man. I know you will.
Absolutely, man. This is, like you said, it's like Christmas morning, so excited to see how things shake out. We'll talk soon.
All right, Andrew DiCecco at DiCecco NFL on Twitter, Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast.